A judge out on the lefty West Coast is saying, you know what? In order for ICE to apprehend any illegal migrants, they got to have a warrant. Now, this is unusual because historically they have not needed a warrant. Why? Because the thinking is if you've got somebody who's a criminal, who's here illegally, and if you have to go fuss around to get that warrant, they might actually flee and you don't have the time to arrest them. So if you believe them to be a criminal, you in the federal government have that ability to move forward. This is the judge, the California judge, of course, Jennifer Thurston, temporarily blocking Border Patrol agents from making warrantless arrests of suspected illegal migrants without probable cause that they may flee before a warrant is obtained. So she's trying to create a lot of paperwork and a lot of bureaucracy to get in the way of all of this.
All right, another judicial pushback against President Trump's immigration crackdown. This comes after dozens were arrested in January during Border Patrol's Operation Return to Sender, where agents rounded up people determined to have entered the who were determined to have entered the country illegally. Yesterday, California District Judge Jennifer Thurston demanded CBP agents cannot arrest suspected illegal migrants without a warrant or reason to believe the person is a flight risk before they can get one.
Okay, so that's just wrong because, again, we're getting down into this federal versus state breakdown. And on this particular issue, when it comes to the border and who's in the country, I hate to break it to them, but this is the Fed's responsibility all day long, okay? This is like the one power that the federal government really and truly does have. So for them to say, okay, we're going to demand this, that, and the other, the California judge does not have the ability to do this. And the law is pretty darn clear on this. So where are we heading? I mean, we could be heading to the Supreme Court. For sure, you've got Chuck Schumer hoping and praying that we're going to the Supreme Court. But then what happens? When the Supreme Court tells him he's wrong, he wants a full-on Civil War, constitutional crisis-esque thing. I mean, this is dangerous where they're taking us, but here they are, ladies and gentlemen. Chuck Schumer at his best, worst, I don't know what to call this.
Immigration advocates have been warning we are on the verge of a constitutional crisis. Has that crisis arrived, Senator?
Yes, it has, unfortunately, because Trump wants to be king. A king doesn't have a constitution. A king just does whatever he wants, and Biondi just goes along with them.
Just goes along with them, huh? I mean, it's really just sort of insane.
Immigration advocates have
Let's
been...
fast forward a little bit more. Oh, that's all we have. Okay,
Senator.
Forgive me. He goes
Yes,
on. You don't want to hear Chuck
has,
Schumer anyway. I know, yeah. He goes on to say that this is heading into a constitutional crisis. It's a total breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. Well, no, because again, let's go back to the powers that the federal government actually has. I mean, the California judge, she might be as crazy as the Wisconsin judge, but there is no there. When this is all coming out in the wash, I know you don't all like Barr, right? But Bill Barr, former Attorney General, it's almost more important to hear this from him because he's not necessarily a huge Trump fan, but he's pretty clear on the law. And you know where he comes out? Exactly where I come out. Exactly where I come out. I don't have a legal background, but you know what? I do know that the one thing the federal government has power over is the actual borders and who's in the country and naturalization. Here's General Barr explaining the sanctuary city issue and why these judges are way out over their skis when they're interfering.
One of the ways we identify these illegal aliens is when they're picked up by local police for violating the law there. Could be domestic violence, petty theft, whatever. They're brought into state court. Now, in the old days, before the sanctuary cities movement got going, they'd be turned over to federal officials. But since the sanctuary cities took effect, we've had local judges let these people go and sneak them out the back door so that ICE agents can't pick them up. And in fact, back in September 2019, in the first term, we charged a judge in Massachusetts for a very similar action to what this Milwaukee judge
But
did.
it's the response to this, the actual arrest of these. And in the case of that judge who spirited her, the perp that was on the stand out the back door, I mean, she actually had to be chased down and was perp walked. And the judge and his wife went through a similar escapade with federal agents. I mean, it does seem like it's reached a critical point here. And I just wonder what's going to happen next. I mean, are we going to see this bounced up somehow eventually to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it'll get to the Supreme Court because I think the law is so clear. The states argue, the sanctuary states argue, they don't have to affirmatively assist us, the feds, in getting hold of these illegal aliens. But this isn't a question of assisting. This is actually interfering with, of harboring, of getting in the way. And so I don't think there's any question about this, and I think it's time for zero tolerance and getting back to basics, which are that judges and state officials are still citizens, they're subject to the federal law, and they cannot interfere in or impede the federal function. So
and that's exactly what's been happening, right? They're impeding the federal authorities in being able to do their jobs. As far as the California Judge Thurston, trying to say that, okay, you must present a warrant. You must do that if you're going to arrest an illegal migrant. That's where, I'm sorry, I think they're just way out over where they should be, because this is not their decision to make. It really isn't. So it may actually wind up in the Supreme Court. We'll see how this all shakes out. But I want to get to that Milwaukee judge. You've seen the lowers on the bottom of the screen there talking about how she's been thrown out of the court there, or suspended, I should say, in Wisconsin, the higher court ruling that, yeah, you can't just be out on your own, like saying, okay, I'm gonna release this criminal. I mean, come on. Unbelievable stuff. This really is a breakdown. And the left is deliberately doing this. They want this breakdown. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself why the heck they wanted all these people coming into the country in the first place. 250,000 a month. Talk of some 22 million people being here illegally. That's not cool. You actually need to know who's in the country, and you got to be vetting people first, for goodness sakes. I'll tell you what, I've vetted for you, Balance of Nature. My friends over at Balance of Nature, one of the great sponsors of the Trish Regan Show, they have a great deal for you. You can get 35% off. I take my fruits and veggies every day. This is great, actually, because everybody's so focused right now, and rightly so. You hear RFK Jr. all the time talking about ingredients that are in things, and you've heard me mention before that these are gluten-free, for those of you that care, but it's better than that. All of the ingredients, totally natural. And you should get all the ingredients you possibly can. Listen, eat your broccoli every day, right? You should be eating as much as you can that is healthy and natural. But when you can't get it all, and if you're like me and you don't get enough sun and you don't eat enough vegetables at times, dare I say, this comes in handy, because having that multivitamin actually, for me anyway, gives me those higher vitamin D levels that I need, that I crave, and that, are essential for functioning at your very best. And so this is where Balance of Nature, I think, really makes a difference in people's lives. Certainly has in mine. Balanceofnature.com. Use code word Trish. 1-800-246-8751 is their number. Use code Trish when you call them. You'll get 35% off, free shipping, plus a money-back guarantee. The court is suspending that Milwaukee judge. Unbelievable stuff. I cannot believe that a judge would think that it was totally fine and totally cool to be out there saying to somebody who's been accused of domestic violence is in your courtroom, for goodness sakes, because of domestic violence. You're a woman. You don't care about the woman at all that was the victim here. She didn't even inform the victims, by the way. She just took this guy because she saw the ICE agents outside, and she brought him into her chambers, and she lets him out the back door. What kind of crazy world are we living in when now the judges are letting the alleged criminals walk free? This is Judge Dugan. You see her here. She had to flee herself out the back door, I guess, when the cameras caught up with her.
Judge.
You hear the reporter? She's not taking any questions. Nope. No questions. Thank you very much. She gets into her SUV and off she goes. You see, she's got protection, right? What does she care about any alleged criminals on the street? She's got her SUV, her driver, the whole thing. Well, anyway, they have arrested her. The FBI has arrested her. And as a result of that arrest, guess what? The higher court there in the state of Wisconsin said, well, we really can't have you on our court, given that you are the subject of an FBI investigation and they are charging you here in this case. But think about where we are right now and how we got here, and the idea that you have millions and millions and millions of people, many of whom are believed to be criminals. How did we get here? Oh, I know. Biden. Tom Homan knows that too.
Look, I started in the Border Patrol in 1984. I've been at this for over 40 years. I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. Every president ever worked for took border security seriously, because you can't have national security if you don't have strong border security. We got to know who's coming in, what's coming in, where's coming in, why it's coming in, right? Even President Obama and President Clinton took some steps to secure the border because they understood national security was important. Joe Biden was the first president in the history of this nation who came into office and unsecured a border on purpose.
Wow. And why was that? I really am starting to believe it was a gerrymandering operation, right? They wanted to have higher populations in certain states, therefore they could get more representation in Congress. Also, perhaps, just look at the state of New York. They were thinking, maybe we can get some people voting in elections. They had 800,000 non-citizens that they wanted voting in the state of New York until the court struck it down. I mean, this is wild stuff.